They showed up again at sunrise. Same dust-coated SUV, HOA spray painted on the side, like it carried real authority. The engine snarled as it came in hot, tires skidding, front bumper slamming into our ranch fence hard enough to rattle every post in the line. The chains on the gate clanged and shrieked like they were alive. Grandpa didn't even blink. He stood on the porch with his coffee, staring at them like he already knew exactly how this was going to end. The guy behind the wheel wasn't a real cop. His badge looked cheap, something printed off a machine and glued on crooked, but he carried himself like he owned the whole valley. He leaned out the window and barked, "This land is under HOA jurisdiction. Remove the fence, or we'll remove it for you." Same line as always. Same threat, repeated like a broken radio. Grandpa took a slow sip of his coffee and answered the same way he always did, calm and steady. "This ain't your land. Never was." But that morning felt different. The fake officer wasn't alone. 2 more men sat in the back seat, big, broad-shouldered, shaved heads, black jackets. Not neighbors. Not law enforcement. Just hired muscle. When they climbed out, they didn't say a word. They went straight for the fence, gripping the metal like they were ready to rip it apart piece by piece. My throat tightened. That fence wasn't just steel and posts. It was the line that kept our cattle safe. The line Grandpa built with my dad before I was old enough to walk. Losing it didn't just mean damage, it meant losing everything. I stepped forward, but Grandpa raised a hand without looking at me. "Stay back." Then he finally spoke again, his voice low but sharp enough to cut clean through the morning air. "Last warning, turn that truck around and leave." The fake cop smirked. He actually laughed, like Grandpa was just some tired old rancher with nothing left in him. Then he gave the order that snapped something inside my chest. "Hit the fence again." Full speed. The engine growled. Tires spun. The SUV backed up, lining itself up like it was charging prey. Grandpa leaned slightly toward me and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "All right then. We do it my way now." His eyes had that look, the one he only ever had when telling stories about his past, about things he never liked to explain. Things that happened before this land, before peace. And suddenly I knew. These men had no idea who they were dealing with. Grandpa didn't run. He didn't yell. He turned and walked, slow and steady, toward the barn. The SUV surged forward, grill aimed straight at the fence like it was a trophy waiting to be destroyed. I wanted to shout, wanted to stop it, but Grandpa's calm held me frozen. The SUV slammed into the fence again. "Oh!" screamed. Dust exploded into the air, but the fence didn't give. It barely shifted. The fake cop's face twisted in confusion. He reversed again, harder this time, like stubbornness could replace common sense. That's when Grandpa came back from the barn, carrying something long, dark, and heavy, resting easily on his shoulder. At first glance, it looked like a tool, but I knew better. A railroad steel beam, thick, solid, cold. Built to stop trains, not trucks. And then I noticed what I hadn't seen before. The fence rails were different. Grandpa had replaced them overnight, quietly, while everyone slept. The wood was gone, every inner rail now solid steel, welded tight, unbreakable without industrial equipment. The SUV charged again. This time, the truck lost. The front end folded like paper. The engine coughed. The hood buckled upward. Steam blasted into the air. The fake officer stumbled out screaming like he'd been shot. "What the hell did you do? You can't do that. You can't just..." Grandpa set the steel beam down, leaned on it, and looked him straight in the eyes. "I told you this is my land. You don't break what's mine." One of the hired thugs stepped forward, cracking his knuckles, young and confident in a way only people who've never been tested can be. He thought Grandpa was an easy target. Grandpa didn't move. He just looked at him like a fly that landed on his plate. "You really want to try that?" he asked. The thug hesitated just for a second, but it was enough. I saw it. Fear. There was something in Grandpa's voice. Something old. Something dangerous. The kind you only carry if you've lived through worse than anything standing in front of you now. The fake cop switched tactics. He yanked out his phone and waved it like a weapon. "I'm calling the real sheriff. You're going to jail. You assaulted HOA property. Grandpa didn't blink. Good, he said. Call him. The fake cop froze. That wasn't the reaction he wanted, because if Grandpa wanted the sheriff here, then nothing was going according to plan. And then I remembered, Grandpa wasn't just an old rancher, he used to be something else. Something big. Something people in real uniforms respected. Something these fake cops did not want to deal with. The air went dead quiet. The fake cop's hand shook. Phone pressed to his ear, thumb hovering like he wasn't sure dialing was still a good idea. You're bluffing, he muttered, but his voice had lost its edge. Grandpa looked at me instead of them. Go inside. Bring me the old red folder from the safe. I knew exactly which one. The one we were never allowed to open. The one Dad once mentioned in a whisper when Grandpa wasn't around. It's proof, he'd said. Proof of who we used to be. I ran. My hands shook as I unlocked the safe and pulled out the faded folder, its edges worn like it had traveled through hell and back. When I handed it to Grandpa, he didn't open it. He just held it at his side, like a card waiting to be played. You boys think you're law, Grandpa said, slow and deliberate. But law has rules. And I helped write some of them. The thugs swallowed hard. The fake cop's eyes darted between the wrecked SUV, the reinforced fence, and Grandpa himself. Control was gone. It vanished the moment the fence didn't break. Grandpa took one step forward, just one, but it felt like the ground shifted. I don't answer to HOA. I don't answer to hired muscle. And I sure don't answer to men wearing badges they didn't earn, the fake officer snapped, pointing like a desperate child. You don't understand who we work for. Grandpa's expression didn't change. And you don't understand who I am. Then he opened the folder. Inside wasn't money or deeds or permits. It was a military commendation, a gold badge, official documentation, photos of a younger Grandpa in full uniform standing beside real federal agents, bigger than local police. One of the thugs whispered it when he saw the seal. He was a federal marshal. The fake cop went pale. That's not possible. He retired. They said he was gone. Grandpa met his eyes. Yeah, they said that for a reason. The wind swept across the dirt. The barn flag snapped softly. No one moved. Then, far off, we heard it. A siren. Just one. Not rushing. Not panicked. The real sheriff was already on his way. And considering the three of you showed up armed, in matching uniforms, Sheriff Dalton added, pausing just long enough to let the words sink in. We're getting real close to organized intimidation. The men shifted on their feet. The air tightened like a wire pulled too far. The fake cop swallowed and tried one last time, his voice cracking as the authority drained out of it. We had authorization from the HOA board. They told us this land was theirs. They gave us orders. Dalton stared at him the way a grown man looks at a child who just ate sand, and then wondered why his mouth was full of grit. Son, Dalton said evenly, HOA boards don't command law enforcement, ever. Then Dalton turned to Grandpa. You want to press charges? Grandpa didn't answer right away. He looked at the fence, the dust still hanging in the air, the ruined SUV, the faces of men who thought fear could rule land. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but firm. Not yet. Dalton nodded like he understood the part Grandpa hadn't said out loud. Because Grandpa wasn't finished. Whatever came next wasn't going to be simple punishment. It was going to be a lesson. The thugs shifted again. The fake cop swallowed hard. They thought they'd gotten lucky. They had no idea what was coming. Grandpa leaned the steel rail back against the post and wiped his hands like the whole thing was nothing more than dirt on his palms. The fake cop and his muscle stood stiff, waiting to see if cuffs were coming. Dalton stayed between them, arms crossed, letting the silence do the work. Grandpa finally spoke. Not loud, not angry, just steady. You boys aren't the problem, he said. You're just the tools. The fake cop blinked, confused. What's that supposed to mean? Grandpa looked him straight in the eyes, and there was something heavy there. Something old. Somebody paid you to drive out here every day, burn gas, tear down my fence, pretend you had authority, and whoever paid you thought I'd break first. The fake cop's jaw moved, but no words came. You work for someone, Grandpa continued. And I want to know who. The shaved head thug let out a short breath, almost a laugh, like he thought the worst was over. You're not getting anything from us. Grandpa didn't even turn to face him. He just nodded once toward the fence. You hit this fence for days in a row. Thought we rebuilt it every time. But you didn't check the posts. The thug frowned. What about the posts? They're reinforced, Grandpa said calmly. Every inch. And there are cameras welded under every beam. My heart nearly stopped. He'd been preparing this for days. Quiet. Patient. Waiting. Dalton glanced at Grandpa. So you already have footage? All of it. The fake cop's eyes widened. That footage is illegal. Dalton cut him off with a short, humorless laugh. You'd know the law better if you actually worked in it. Recording trespassers on private property is legal and admissible. That's when real panic showed up. Not bluster, not threats. Real fear. Grandpa stepped closer, not threatening, just certain. So here's your choice. You give me the name of the woman running your little operation, or I hand everything over to state investigators. The fake cop looked like he was being crushed from the inside. Teeth clenched, shoulders tight. The name almost slipped out. No, the big thug hissed sharply. He'll deal with us if we talk. Grandpa's brow lowered just a fraction. He asked quietly. The thug swallowed hard. Dalton's voice dropped. Who is he? Silence. That was the moment we realized this wasn't about an HOA Karen anymore. This was bigger. Someone with money, with reach. Someone who already thought the land belonged to him. Grandpa didn't hesitate. So the real fight hasn't even started yet. He didn't push them further. He didn't need to. Dalton pulled out his pad and started writing slow, deliberate strokes. The kind that meant this was officially on record. The fake cop tried to steady his voice. If we leave, this ends here, right? Grandpa shook his head. No, this ends when the one who sent you comes here himself. The shaved head thug flinched. He knew exactly who Grandpa meant. Then they left. Not fast, not confident, just fast enough to show fear without admitting it. The SUV limped down the dirt road, coughing smoke behind it. When the dust settled, the ranch felt quiet again. Too quiet. You know who he is, don't you? I asked. Grandpa walked to the fence and rested his hand against the new steel, like he was checking a pulse. He owns the development company, he said finally. The one trying to buy out the valley. He thinks if he scares us out, he gets the land cheap. Thinks people like us don't fight back. Anger burned in my chest. Why not call the state? The feds? You've got proof. You could end this now. Grandpa looked at me, calm as ever. Because men like him don't learn from jail. They learn when everybody sees them lose. That night, Grandpa worked again. Quiet. Focused. He fixed the fence clean, replaced bolts, rewelded joints. Then he added something new. A sign. Not printed. Not store-bought. Hand-carved. When he hammered it in, I understood everything. It didn't say no trespassing. It said, we don't sell land here. By morning, the valley was awake. Word travels fast in small towns. Trucks slowed. People nodded. Some smiled. Then we heard an engine. Not the fake HOA SUV. A black luxury truck rolled up, clean and powerful. The man stepped out wearing polished boots and a suit too expensive for dirt roads. The developer. He walked toward the fence like the world already belonged to him. I'm making you one last offer, he said smoothly. Sell the ranch. Take the money. Leave quietly. Grandpa didn't move. Didn't blink. Just pointed to the camera post recording everything. The developer's smile cracked just a little. You sent men to break what's mine, Grandpa said evenly. You tried to scare my family. You tried to erase history. So listen close. He leaned forward. You don't scare us. And we don't run. The developer's jaw tightened. His hand twitched. But there was nothing left to do. Not with the sheriff, the town, and the cameras watching. He got back into his truck and drove away. Not fast, not slow, defeated. Grandpa rested his hand on the steel rail, sunlight catching his face. You protect land, he said softly. Not because it's dirt, but because it's memory. The fence didn't just stand strong. It stood like a warning, and like a promise. They never came back.